a kì í fi igúnnugún bọ̀gún lé, ariwo gbáà gbáà ariwo, a kì í fi àkàlàmọ̀gbò bọ̀gún ẹrẹ́jà, ariwo gbáà gbáà ariwo.
Oògùn owó ló jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀.
Ìjọ tí abẹ́rẹ́ ẹgbẹ́ bá balẹ̀ ní ìfẹ́, ariwo gbáà gbáà ariwo, gbogbo ọ̀tà ìlú ìkéjú jọ kí wọ́n fẹ́ kò ní bọ́, ariwo gbáà gbáà ariwo.
Orí ìnàkí yìí wọ́n lò fún kájú wọn.
Wọ́n ní ajá táàwí lọ́rọ̀ tí ó fẹ́, ó dájá ẹlẹ́gbàrá tó mọ́mọ́ táàwí lọ́rọ̀ tí ó fẹ́, á dàbò mọ́lẹ̀ ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ èèyàn tá a bá wí lọ́rọ̀ tí ó bá fẹ́, ẹ ṣáàjú ẹ̀ bó bá ṣe fẹ́ ni kó máa ṣe fún ara ẹ̀ lọ́fọwọ́ àbámọ̀ kó mú sẹ́nu.
For a couple of weeks, I was traveling across Nigeria to put together a conversation with Nollywood actors and to create a test to see if money ritual works. While doing that, I came upon a story from Lalude about the origin of money ritual.
Ilẹ̀ bàbá mi rè, mo lè fi gbódì ń dín èèyàn. Ọwọ́ ni yẹn fi lẹ̀ kó lẹ̀. Odindi èèyàn yẹn kì í ṣààyè o, tó ti kú ni o. Bó bá ṣe lè wù kó le tó, Òkun ni wọ́n ń gbé lọ, Òkun Èkó náà máa gbé lọ. Bó ṣe wù kílùú náà ṣe wà tó, bó ṣe láti ilẹ̀ Haúsá, Òkun ni kì í wá ṣiṣẹ́ nìkan, àgbájọpọ̀ ṣe ni. Wọ́n wá gbé lọ sí etí òkun kòkòrò Cowries náà ná lówó ìgbà yẹn. Òkú èèyàn ló ń jẹ, á wá bò.
There are elements to this story that are worth highlighting. First, this sounds like a biological explanation, not a supernatural one. Second, it sort of insinuates that the cowries that were spent then were found and picked on our shores.
Cowries come from the beach.
You mean this beach?
Yeah.
Given the importance of cowries across West African nations and money ritual showing up today across the region, I traveled through Nigeria to Ghana to sort of find out the truth, if this was indeed a real practice that was done then, and if it could actually explain the money ritual that is being done now.
Cowries ìgbà yìí tẹ́lẹ̀. Cowries tó jẹ́ pé táwọn àgbààgbà mọ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀, wọ́n ní cowries tó jáde ní omi òkun India. Wọ́n ní ìgbà àwọn àgbààgbà yìí yẹn, cowries tó jáde ní omi òkun India wọ́n ń gbé wá, tó ti ra, wọ́n fi ra àwọn slave.
This came as a shock to me, although I was trying to confirm if the money ritual from Lalude was believed, not if it works. The implications for this fact are actually huge. Peter Fatomilola, who I spoke to, didn't believe the narration of Lalude.
Nǹkan tán sọ wọ́n ní bí ọmọ ọba bá ìtàn Araba ṣé irú òun yẹn ṣé ó wà láyé ńgbà náà ni bí wọ́n ní ni.
But he didn't say anything about Cowries being from another continent. In fact, most people don't know about this. Even I didn't.
So I was told I can't actually get it without with my black, so I had to actually buy this new name.
The implications are that the god of Aje that we worship was inspired by this foreign trade with cowries that we thought all along were ours. We love cowries. It's a symbol of wealth, symbol of power, symbol of the supernatural, and it is prioritized even in our divination system all across Western Africa. But it looks like it is not ours.
Ṣáájú kì í sọkùnrin obìnrin ni. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni.
And the cowries owó ẹyọ yìí kí ni ìtumọ̀ ẹ̀ sí òrìṣà Ajé?
Owó ẹyọ gangan Ajé náà ni. Nítorí pé ní ìgbà ìwáṣẹ̀ ẹ bá rí pé owó ẹyọ yìí ó ní wọ́n ná, ó ní wọ́n fi ń ra irú, ó ní wọ́n fi ń ra ta lọ́jà àti onírúurú àwọn nǹkan mèremère nǹkan tí wọ́n ń lò ní owó ní àtijọ́ ní eléyìí. Nǹkan tó dẹ̀ ń pè ní owó tá ń pè ní owó náà ní Ajé. So ìgbà tí Ajé dẹ̀ di atẹ́gùn tó wọlé tí ò lè dúró gẹ́gẹ́ bí àwa èèyàn mọ́, eléyìí ló fi pàrokò wípé ló fi ṣe àẹ̀dà pé Ajé ni eléyìí. So tẹ́ bá lọ sínú òkun ẹ máa rí kíní kó kúrò ńbẹ̀.
Inú òkun ni owó ẹyọ ti ń wá. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn ẹsẹ̀ Ifá ló sọ. Tó bá jẹ́ pé à ní owó ẹyọ lọ́dọ̀ wa ń bí, kí ni yóò ṣe máa jẹyọ nínú àṣà wa? Ọ̀kan, èjì, ẹ̀ta, ẹ̀rin. Owó ẹyọ gan, ìpìlẹ̀ owó ẹyọ gan, kí ni ìwé? Ó ní orúkọ ohun tó ń bí owó wẹrẹwẹrẹ yẹn, kí ni ìwé ni? Nínú ẹsẹ̀ Ifá Ìrẹ́ntẹ̀gbè, Ejìnrìn wọ̀jọ̀wọ̀jọ̀ awo ọlọ́wọ̀, adífá fọ́lọ́wọ̀ níjọ́ tí ó fomi ojú ṣògbèrè Ajé. Ọba ni ọlọ́wọ̀ ṣùgbọ́n kò lówó, ojú ń pọ́n. Wọ́n á dáfá, wọ́n ní kó rúbọ, ó ní ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ èkuru, ewúrẹ́, wọ́n ṣàkì àrúbọ fún rúbọ. Àti rúbọ tán, ó wá lọ oko, ibi tó gbé ń yẹ nǹkan wò káàkiri báyìí ló bá rí kínìún ìyá Ajé. Ó wá mú wálé. Àwọn awo sì ti sọ pé yóò bá nǹkan ọlà pàdé pé ibẹ̀ ni ó ti dà tí ó ti lówó. Ló wá mú kínìún yìí, ó wá fi sí kọ̀rọ̀ yàrá. Èkuru tán ní kó fi rúbọ, ó ń fi sídìí ẹ̀. Kínìún wá bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí bí ọ̀hún èdèmèdè. Èyí ò ní àwọn wẹ́rẹ́wẹ́. Ó ṣáà ń fi èkuru sídìí ẹ̀. Nígbà ọ̀pẹ odidi yàrá kan kún fún owó ni, owó ẹyọ. Ó tún mú kínìún yẹn kú, ó tún fi yàrá mi, ó tún fi èkuru sí bí ọba dolówó. Òkìkí kan ọlọ́wọ̀ tó jẹ́ pé kò sówó lọ rẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀, ọrọ̀ ẹ̀sìn, ọrọ̀ ẹrú, ọrọ̀ àwọ̀, òkìkí wá kàn gbogbo àwọn ọba yòókù wọn bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí jowú rẹ̀ tẹ̀. Ọlọ́wọ̀ tó jẹ́ pé àwọn tí ń gẹṣin kò tí mọ̀ pé wọ́n gẹṣin ló wá ní ọba Àdó Ìbíní ló wá ránṣẹ́ sí ọlọ́wọ̀ pé kó gbé nǹkan tí ń bí kínìún owó tí ń bí owó fún pé kó gbé fóun, kó gbé ránṣẹ́ sóun. Bó lọ́hún sì gbé ránṣẹ́ sí nǹkan òun nì. Ojú ní pọ̀ òun dẹ̀rù bọ̀ àwọn babaláwo ló ṣe fá fún òun, ó sì bá kíni ó wá ka igba owó ẹyọ. Ó dì í, ó sì mú ẹrú kan ọkùnrin, ẹrú kan obìnrin, akọ ẹṣin, abo ẹṣin, oníkọ́lọ̀ fún ọlọ́wọ̀ ní rárá o. Kí ni ìwé hùn tí bí òun ni ò fẹ́ gbà? Ó wọ̀ nǹkan òun ni wọ́n ló ṣe àgbà lọ́hùn. Ó ní tí ọba gbà lẹ́rọ̀, ogun lòun ó fi gbà ó. Ọlọ́wọ̀ bá kó àwọn ọmọ ogun rẹ̀ jọ, bá ní kí wọ́n lọ rí kọlu ọba Àdó. Ó kó àwọn ọmọ ogun rẹ̀ jọ nítorí lọ ìlú Ọ̀wọ̀ tó gba kínìún ìyá Ajé wá fún ọba. Ọlọ́wọ̀ wá lọ rè bá àwọn babaláwo. Ẹja ńlá ní yọrí dáadáa ní ogún. Ọ̀kan ràdàràdà awolé ọlá dàríri. Òpè gbégbà rẹ̀ ń lo oko ẹmu. Ẹyẹ wẹrẹ ń lọ bí àti rọ̀jò lẹ̀. Àwọn ní ṣe fá fún Ọlọ́wọ̀. Kó o lè gba nǹkan ìní ìnáwó wọn ní kó rúbọ. Igbó 7, ẹkùn 7, àkàlà 7, abẹ́rẹ́ ẹdẹ. Ń bá ṣe fá fún Ọlọ́wọ̀. Wọ́n ní kó lọ sẹ́nu odi ìlú. Ó fi ìwo àgbọ̀nrín tí wọ́n fi ṣe fá, ó fi gúnlẹ̀ lẹ́nu odi. ó wá máa ṣàrúbọ bí ẹni tí ń sa àgbò, ó máa sa ògùn bí ẹni tí ń safá. Àṣé ọba Àdó ó ti rán gbogbo àwọn ogun rẹ̀ tẹ́ ti yí ìlú Ọ̀wọ̀ pé wọ́n ti wà lẹ́nu odi. Tó bá bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí pefá, wọ́n ní tó bá ti pefá tán kó wá yin ìbọn, kó yìn sí ìkì ìbọn, kó yìn ìkì ìbọn sí ifá. Ó ní a kì í fi igúnnugún bọ̀gún ilé, ariwo gbáà gbáà ariwo, a kì í fi àkàlàmọ̀gbò bọ̀gún ẹrẹ́jà, ariwo gbáà gbáà ariwo, níjọ́ tí abẹ́rẹ́ ẹdẹ bá balẹ̀ lórí ẹ̀ẹ́kù, ariwo gbáà gbáà ariwo, gbogbo ọ̀tà ìlú ìpéjújọ kí wọ́n fẹkùn bọ́, ariwo gbáà gbáà ariwo, tó bá yìnbọn síwájú gbáà, bíbọn ṣe tó báyìí ìbọn kan tó ń dún káàkiri gbogbo àwọn igi, gbogbo olórí wọn tó gọ síwájú, ìbọn ọba fẹ̀yìn nílẹ̀ bí ọlọ́wọ́ ṣe ṣẹ́gun ọba Àdó nù tí ò lè gba kíníwé Ìyá Ajé. Ìyá Ajé ní bí ọ̀hún dèrèdè, kìí ṣe India nìkan ni wọ́n, bóyá nítorí pé àwa ò tètè ní àkọọ́lẹ̀ níbí tí ó jẹ́ pé India ni wọ́n ti gbé rí àkọjáde lẹ́ fi ń sọ wípé rẹ̀rẹ̀ iṣẹ́ òdì ni Cowries ti wá, ó ti wà lọ́dọ̀ wa náà níbí.
When they say Okun and Osa, they really mean Lagos.
tó dẹ̀ fa eléyìí ni pé owó tá a kọ́ ná nílé ayé inú òkun la ti ń kó wá tó rówó ń rí owó ẹyọ èbó ò tí ì introduce coins tàbí paper sí wa tí kálukú ń sọ tiẹ̀ ní náírà dọ́là pound sterling euro ṣùgbọ́n owó tá à ń ná nígbà wáṣẹ̀ ni owó ẹyọ yẹn inú òkun dẹ̀ náà ti ń kó. Ṣé mo sọ fún ẹ mo ní owó òun ló ń jẹ́ ajé? Ibo la ti ń kó ajé? Inú òkun. Ajé tí mo kó láti ilé olókun àti wá sọ òun náà dòòṣà. Àwọn tó wá jókòó wọ́n lè má dé ibi tókun wà láwọn tó gba ajé gẹ́gẹ́ bí òrìṣà tí wọ́n bá ti owó ẹyọ yẹn kò ti kalẹ̀ báyìí. Wọ́n mọ èdè tí wọ́n fi bá sọ̀rọ̀ tí spiriti rẹ̀ tí ó gùn wọ́n bí àwọn ọlọ́sùn ṣe mọ èdè tán fi ń bá omi sọ̀rọ̀ tó bá dé lẹ́fù tí wọ́n á lọ nínú ẹ̀mí tí ẹ̀gún Ọ̀ṣun tá gùn wọ́n. Báwọn ológun wọ́n ṣe ní language tí wọ́n á fọ̀ dé level kan tí ojú wọn á mú iná dání.
Hence the conventional belief that Cowries came from our own shores. And the etymology of the word itself, Aje, actually means trade. If we were not spending Cowries before Western influence, it only means that it was Western influence or influences of places from all around the world that inspired it.
This story that Elebuibon shared actually tried to explain the origin of Cowries. But when you look at the element of the story, you can actually see that this was when trade began. Guns were not our own making. We got it through trade. And it came in when we were already trading Cowries. So this particular story was actually created after Cowries was already in circulation.
Every culture where Cowries made heavy landing in Western Africa somehow believes that Cowries is gotten from their beach. Yet, culturally, they have taken the Cowries as their instrument of worship.
Ne magbɔnɔ le míabe sɛnsɛn be ke Mina alo míabe sɛnsɛn be teƒe ƒoɖo hotsukui ŋutia, magbɔnɔ hotsukuia mísɔ xɔna gbeli míabe sɛnsɛn gbɔ ye. Sãwo xoxoa míatɔgbuiwo na mínya be hotsukuia eka be ni yewo ɖuna, keŋ gbɔ yewo va sɔ woabe gawɔ sɔ na mí. Vɔ kebi dzo le wɔn dzia míatɔgbuiwoa ŋkewo va le wɔ wova zãna hotsukuia sɔ wɔna ŋkɔ da ne woabe sɛnsɛn gbɔ sɔ biona gbe sɛnsɛn be nuya ɖeke ke wo aɖe afɔ ke ɖi yewo zɔn yewo kpɔ ɖagbe mano da hotsukuia ɖi ne me no be nuya ɖeke mi nuya ɖeke mi wɔ ɖeke o.
The Guin people and Ife people do not share an ancestral link, but they both took the white. They took the color of the sea, they took the color of the cowries, and they all use schnapps as their instrument of worship too. The belief that cowries was gotten from the sea using dead bodies survived all around the world.
Àkọ́kọ́ ní ordinary level àṣe iṣẹ́ ìdánilẹ́kọ̀ọ́ kan tá ń pè ní element of banking tí àkórí iṣẹ́ wa jẹ́ the advent of money. The process a gbọ́ pé láti ìjọ yẹn náà àwọn kan náà tí wọ́n ń láti fi ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gán tó wù ẹrú jẹ́ gbajúgbajà. Àwọn èèyàn ń rẹrú kété pé wọ́n rẹrú wọ́n ń tẹrú nìkan. Wọ́n ń rẹrú wọ́n ń fẹ́rú wọ́n ń ṣògùn owó nípa pé wọ́n ó pa wọ́n ó jù sódò bí wọ́n ti sọ fún wa àgbà yẹn náà nínú kíláàsì yẹn pé wọ́n á jù sódò tó àwọn kíní ó dì mọ́ òkú yẹn wọ́n á fà jáde àti nípa àwọn olówó àtijọ́ ni táwọn ṣe ń ṣe náà nìyẹn.
And stories such as that linked human life to wealth, to cowries. But it wasn't just that. Some of those stories and its impact made it to the present day. This part is really revelatory.
Igi tó wà tó máa ń sowó òfin igi ọjà afẹ títí mórí sọjé bẹ́ẹ̀ ni mọ́rùn ṣèjìgbàrà lẹ̀kẹ̀ ọmọ òkun ìbejì rẹ̀ nísomọ́sàjì àsọba tí kuná yanranyanran ìrẹ́lẹ̀ rẹ̀ ni wọ́n fi sọlà. Òwọ́n rí ọmọ ọlọ́fin lóun wọ́n ka wọ́n sáàtì ní ò gbọ́dọ̀ ka ìgbà òfin pọ̀ wọ́n rí sọ́jà afẹ́ ariwo ẹkún sọ pé ẹni tó bá ń fi tipa wówó tó ń wá owó máa ń yá lù máa ń gé ẹ̀mí wọn kú. Mo ti sọ nínú ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn ìbéèrè báyìí àwọn nǹkan tó ń bí owó tó ń ṣe owó nígbà ó pọ̀. Ara rẹ̀ ní kíníwé ìrìnàjò ara rẹ̀ ní òfún igi ọjà afẹ́ abuké nínú ẹsẹ̀ fáàmì ó sọ wípé ike tí ń bẹ lẹ́yìn abuké yẹn òsàlá òsèrèmọ̀gbò alábàá aláṣẹ ó ti pàṣẹ fún ike kíké yanu tó sì kó owó síbẹ̀ tó pọ̀ làwọn èèyàn fi máa ń rò pé ike owó lọ́wọ́ à ń bí ike.
The scholarly research I made on the origin of cowries reinforced what I discovered in Benin Republic. The cowries that were spent in antiquity and the ones being used for divination right now, the one you see on every Western African prince, king or queen, are not indigenous to Western Africa.
These cowries are on, and the reason why they were not actually spent, although seashells had an importance among our people, among Africans before the influence of the West. The reason is that they get a lot bigger.
Ours are just different, and there is no evidence that they were ever spent before Western influence, or they were ever spent when it was a currency. But this story from Elebuibon made it to modern day ritual. When money ritual started in 1996, 1997, 1998, the first group of people that were kidnapped were Hunchbacks.
Money ritual, as we know it, seems like an ancient phenomenon, but the truth is, it is only 30 years old.
Ritual killings were rare in the 90s. It seems solid in our art now, but they were very rare. All that existed before then were civilization processes. I have sifted through decades of reports, and the first line of evidence came in 1995. But the first evidence of money ritual killing happened in Owerri, 1996, the Otokoto saga. What ensued demonstrated that this was a new phenomenon that they were challenging.
When it started in 95, 96, 97, the reaction was surprise and disbelief. Of course, people didn't go as far as actually putting it to test or actually questioning it, but they doubted it. And the reaction was to leave it alone, because it actually rhymes with some of the beliefs they actually held, some views they actually held, some rumors they actually held.
Murder so brutal. It means murder unlike we've ever seen. Ritualists invade Lagos. It means the ritualists were not amongst us, but they are now. The ritualists worked like a gang in all societies. But now, the ritualist could be your neighbor. Beliefs were formed in late 1990s. And the main instrument that evolved this was Nollywood. The first movie about money ritual in Nigeria was Living in Bondage. It was made in 1992 and they had very little to go on. Sacrifices to Lucifer. This is a concept now falling to our hair, but it wasn't to the producers of that movie and to the audience of the time. Fiction only works when it rhymes with something in reality and it rhymes with the belief of the time. Money ritual was like the Illuminati, a group of people you never see, you barely heard of, but there are rumors that they actually exist. But then Living in Bondage came and solidified that view. And the reason why Living in Bondage was so successful was because at the time, people saw movies on the TV as real life lessons. Things that were possible, especially when the movies end like this.
Viewers, the Lord has said that He will visit us, but at His own time.
People believed that producers and actors and directors actually consulted characters and plots in these movies. Films only existed in theaters before the VHS types. About Ogunde made movies about witches and witchcraft, but none about money ritual. Living in Bondage came at a time when there was little to no evidence of money ritual being made. In fact, the victims in those movies were not killed directly. And since it was the Igbo marketers that popularized the VHS tapes in the early 90s, the major scandals about money ritual that happened in the late 90s involved mainly Igbo people. It earned them that stereotype that we hear about Igbo and money ritual. It wasn't that an ethnic group is more humane or less humane. The Nollywood trend can simply show you the history of money ritual. In the late 90s, the only movies that would go through production were movies about ritual and the occult. It was a selling point. People wanted it because they were learning and it had them fearing. I spoke to one of the creators of Living in Bondage and he told me anonymously that the reason why Living in Bondage went viral and everyone watched it cross-culturally all across the world was because people didn't know how money ritual was being done. And that movie showed them. It was right. they didn't know because it wasn't happening. But now it does.
Èmi mọ̀ pé téèyàn bá fẹ́ ṣe ẹni oògùn ẹni àájò tí ò bá ti lo èèyàn tọ́lọ́run dá irú wọ̀nyẹn lèmi fọwọ́ sí. Ṣùgbọ́n tó bá ti lè di pé èèyàn ń ṣe àájò ọlà ètùtù ọlà débi kó máa lo èèyàn ohun ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ dání. Tá a bá lo ẹni ẹran tọ́lọ́run dá bẹ̀rẹ̀ látòrí eku lórí erin lákàtàbú tàbí àwọn ẹja inú omi tàbí ejò afàyàfà èyí tí a bá lò nínú wọn kò mú ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ dání.
Orí ọ̀bọ yìí nǹkan àbúrò ni wọ́n fi máa ń ṣe téèyàn fi máa ń lówó lọ́wọ́ gbogbo nǹkan tí ò ní dàrú fún yín.
Orí.
Ṣé wá rí orí.
Bí mo ti gbéra ní ó fi sọmọ lọ́wọ́ mi.
Orí ìnàkí yìí wọ́n ń lò fún nǹkan ájò owó gbogbo nǹkan tó lè láàyè téèyàn ti gbé sórí wọ́n ń lò fún.
Torí o bí mi lẹ́ẹ̀kan ní ṣé èmi bìlí pé oògùn owó wà ní tí ò bá sí ọmọ aráyé ò ní sọ ló kọ. Ẹ bá fẹ́ ṣẹ́ṣó àbó fẹ́ ṣe oṣólẹ̀ kan wà tó jẹ́ pé alájọ là ń pè oṣólẹ̀ alájọ. Iye owó tó bá fi ṣe tó dá àjọ yẹn síbẹ̀ níbi tó gbé nǹkan yẹn sí iye owó tó wọ́n bá ní kó fi dájọ́ tó bá fi 1,000 síbẹ̀ tó bá di ọ̀la òun náà fi 1,000 tiẹ̀ tí tó túmọ̀ sí pé 2,000 ló bá ń bẹ̀ tó bá wá fi 10,000 síbẹ̀ 20,000 ni ó dà níjọ́ kejì à ń pè ní oṣólẹ̀ alájọ mo rí mo mọ̀ ṣùgbọ́n mi ní ṣe.
Peter Fatomilola and I will be creating a study, we'll be organizing a study, and some of the things that will be used will be brought here, right here in this market. And just to actually see if the money ritual actually works. If some of the, like the ones without human beings or human power, we will be doing some of those and actually be organizing a peer review empirical test to see if it actually works.
There are a few things to mention. First, you can't lay the blame on anyone, on any actor, on any director, or any producer. They are just victims of this belief system. The thing is that without an oral history that dates back to antiquity, talking about the life and how human life is connected to money and it's not just that, it's basically all over the world. It would have been possible for money ritual to have moved to this stage. So that is one. You can't lay the blame on anyone. You can't lay the blame on any ethnic group. You can't lay the blame on any particular individual. The second one is this: that I will be working with a professor at the University of Ibadan to talk about the belief in the supernatural and to actually get together this study to find out if the money ritual actually works. The ones without human ritual, the ones without impact. The last thing is this: that what I actually imagine happens, because I will be tagging the governor of Anambra and the Lorian Okun State, because these are the spot of money ritual in Nigeria, at least according to the news. I'll be tagging them to actually come together because I hope to actually work with these organizations, these governments to actually put an end to this. We can't end money ritual. I mean, in 2 years, it can be gone just like that. And I understand Governor Soludo in actually arresting this. I do not necessarily agree with it, but I understand what he's trying to do in arresting some. But my own approach is to actually look at this through a freedom of expression and an empirical approach towards this to actually see if it works or not. I don't believe it does. My bias is actually well documented and it won't reflect in our study. I promise you that. So basically, that is the plan. What I plan to actually happen is the conservation and preservation of this culture. I've fallen in love with this. You see the poetry in the documentary. I've fallen in love with it, and I hope that we can actually get together something and actually canonize at least the far. I don't know how the Igbo ones will work right now, but I think we should actually canonize into books, classics, book of poetry, book of incantation, book of metaphysics, spirit of morality. For Ifa, it can actually be something that university, school student and high school student and even children actually read. Something that you can actually read, something that can actually create a unifying value system for at least Yoruba people and everyone else. So I'll be tagging the governors. Please, I hope if they are watching this, I hope we can we'll work together to actually end this particular issue. At least get to me side out of our country.